Good evening, everyone. So for my keynote address, I'd like to introduce everyone to our sustainable investments and infrastructure work in Africa. We are currently implementing a project in Kenya, Tanzania, Madagascar, and China. And I'll just go ahead and make my statements. Infrastructure supports essential services like drinking water, sanitation, agriculture, transport, and industry, electricity, amongst others, and these spur economic development. However, if left unchecked, it has the potential to cause unsustainable patterns in natural resource use and drive climate change, nature and biodiversity loss through issues like pollution and waste, which impact humanity negatively. Linked to this are current issues like zoonotic diseases like the COVID-19. So according to UN Environment, to defeat these three planetary crises and deliver the 2030 agenda, we urgently need to rethink infrastructure systems in Africa. Infrastructure assets are measured in decades, while infrastructure footprint is measured in centuries, therefore locks in impact, positive or negative, and for the longer term. In Africa, our development corridors overlap with more than 7,000 IUCN protected areas, around 2,000 key biodiversity areas, and around 171 Ramsar wetland sites. So infrastructure boom in Africa is driving investments, including those from China, and this is estimated to be at around 150 billion. This has the potential to overwhelm the current norm of project by project environment and social safeguard systems. Without adequate environmental analysis and fully informed integrated planning, then Africa risks losing and locking infrastructure that is neither sustainable nor resilient for the future and affecting growth of industries, transport, cities, and strongly influencing the fate of biodiversity. So we crafted a program, the Africa Sustainable Investments Program, which is supported by NORAD. And this program aims to promote sustainable investing and infrastructure projects across the sub-Saharan Africa region. The program is hosted in Kenya, and we are ideally focusing on financing and infrastructure development from China, looking at the role of the regional bodies like the Africa Union, the Africa Development Bank, along with the national development agenda in China, Kenya, Tanzania, and Madagascar. The program adopts a systemic and landscape approach and will serve as a blueprint for Africa and seeks to accelerate the achievement of the SDGs, especially SDG 9 on industry, innovation, and infrastructure. So what is our strategy? Our strategy includes looking at finance, where we want to see that key Chinese and African financial institutions implement sustainable finance principles to de-risk infrastructure development in Africa. Our next strategy looks at governments. We want to see Africa regional and national political institutions adopt and implement sustainable investment and infrastructure legislation, policies, and plans. And then our final strategy looks at the actual infrastructure projects, where we want to see that communities and NGOs ensure that implementation of sustainable infrastructure policies, plans, and principles is the norm in Africa. By doing this, we expect our program to have 5 outcomes. One of them is that by 2025, key Chinese financial institutions de-risk their infrastructure developments in Africa. And secondly, that Chinese state-owned enterprises implement sustainable infrastructure standards for priority projects in Africa. Thirdly, the key African national, regional, and political institutions adopt and implement sustainable investment and infrastructure policies, plans, and legislations. Fourth is that African financial institutions commit to adopt and implement sustainable finance principles and policies in line with infrastructure principles and SDGs. Lastly, we want to see local communities and NGOs facilitating our monitoring of development projects and pilot initiatives and approaches such as the nature-based solutions in some of the priority areas in Africa. So the impact we expect is that By 2030, infrastructure development in high biodiversity landscapes ensure benefit for people and nature. As such, our program intends to catalyze the SDGs, especially SDG 9, which will facilitate sustainable and resilient infrastructure development in developing countries through enhanced financial, technological, and technical support to African countries. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to finish off by quoting nature.com. And here they have a saying that, while 75% of built up infrastructure in 2050 does not yet exist today, development of infrastructure can help us reach directly and indirectly 72% of the SDG targets. So for us, it's quite mandatory to see that, infrastructure development in Africa is done sustainably. Thank you.